One show, two sports, more than $400,000 up for grabs in first place prizes in February. We're going to draft some MLB Best Ball and some NFL Best Ball simultaneously at the same time. You're going to watch us multi-table both of those sports, try to take down the $200,000 top prizes in both here in February on Spike Week. Let's do it. All right, guys, we got a couple of drafts ready to rock and roll. I'm over in the DraftKings lobbies. It looks like I need your help specifically in the training camp, the $10 main tournament over on DraftKings. I got unlucky, and I was the first person out of 12. So if any of you are hanging out, Versaire, GM, tell me how to say your name. I am a stickler for pronunciation. That doesn't mean I get them all correct. Quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, I get them wrong all of the time, but I want to make sure I get people's names correct. And yes, GM to everybody. Let me move my face around here. It looks like we are full in baseball with the 104. Still 1 out of 12 in the training camp. Vapod. Thank you, Vapod. Hack. Alive and kicking on a Friday morning, able to join us in some drafts. That's how you know it is good. Pack fan, good morning. Kid Kick, the 101. You are to end the thoughts. Is that what that says? To end the thoughts. Versaire, any Zamboni drafts for you this year? I would love to. I watch a lot of the NHL playoffs. I think NHL playoffs are very much up there in terms of the most fun playoff environments and everything. I mean, the playoffs for everything are great. Hilariously, I think the NFL playoffs are kind of some of the least exciting, as strange as that sounds. I know that's a little bit weird, but I sort of feel that way. Boy, I don't like how this is set up here. This may not be perfectly ideal, but we'll get moving around. Let's do this. Let's go to full screen. Let's swap some things around here. I don't think I'm going to do any Zambonis entirely because of the time and effort that say that again. One in the prayers didn't. Okay, I got you. Okay. I don't think that the prize pool warrants the amount of effort that I would put into it, unfortunately, because I am not a hockey expert. I do follow fairly loosely. Let me fix my screens a little bit here real quick. I do follow, the NHL and everything, but loosely, right? So like, I'm not an expert in the line combinations and everything. I have mostly been, of course, following the Blues, which has been about as big of a disaster as a season can possibly be for a sports fan. And so I am not up to snuff on all of the comings and goings of the NHL, particularly right? Like I could tell you all of the rotations for like all the major college basketball teams, right? Like how many minutes their sixth man plays and like, usage rates and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with the NBA. But I don't know that for the NHL, which is fine. That's okay. We shouldn't. It's probably pretty unrealistic for us all to know all of the stuff about every single sport. However, it's kind of important to know, correlations and those kinds of things for the NHL. And I would have no problem like spending the time to do it. It's just, am I going to do that, or am I going to spend the time on NFL and on baseball and on my day-to-day basketball following and keeping some sanity, not thinking about sports and best ball every single waking moment of every second? So it's probably that's sort of what happened to golf for me. That's sort of what happened to golf for me. Though, as Hack says, it is the draft optimizer that we have, of course, built here, which is my favorite tool that I've ever seen in fantasy football up to this point, and I still continue to work on it to extract as much power and value out of it as I even can. And Hack is our wizard. He builds the stuff. He had the idea for this, but I obviously have more knowledge of it than the average bear does. And even I'm still every single day sort of uncovering some things that I think help me improve my best ball drafting game. And for something like, certainly for playoff best ball, but especially hockey, where it isn't like NFL or MLB or something like that, where, yeah, of course there's correlations and there's like positions you have to fill and all that kind of stuff, but you don't generally have a set of certain guys who only play together on the ice with sets of other guys. And I know, it's not every single waking second on the ice that is how it works. But then also some guys play differently, right? Your line mates at even strength versus your line mates on the power play are a little bit different. And so setting groups and setting rules and those kinds of things, the draft optimizer can really, really help with that. So if I can get some time here in the next couple of weeks, I would love to. But I did see that the Zamboni launched. We'll see if we can get to that around here. Looks like we're 6 out of 12 in the training camp over in the NFL streets. I'm not even doing any MLB drafting. I only know my Brewers well. I just like hanging out here while at work. That's sort of what we're shooting for, right? Is I don't think, and this, I'll be honest with you, I struggle with this as a just as someone who's like creating content and everything. Let's do James Wood. I forgot to upload my new rankings. Anyway, I struggle with this, like as someone like, that's creating content, is you want to put out like a bunch of videos and have a bunch of like really, really, really thoughtful and helpful, videos. Here's a draft strategy that, is undervalued. And we sort of did that a little bit yesterday, where I think, despite my 0 RB leanings in the NFL, robust running back is pretty powerful at this time of year specifically. But not every single like piece of content, not every single video, not every single article, whatever, not every waking moment. Like part of what I think makes best ball fun is just like the community element. I feel like I'm hanging out. Oh, okay. I'm getting a little bit of a fun team here. Ronald Acuna, James Wood, PCA. I think maybe one of the best, if not the best part of the whole like best ball ecosystem is like the community element of like, I'm sure there are some things that I'll say over the course of the next 6 months that are thought-provoking and hopefully make people better at this game, or at least make them think a little more deeply about something, right? But not every single second has to be like, here's the players you should draft. And I know that that's like the content that works and all that kind of stuff. But man, like it's a Friday morning. We're all excited for the weekend. It's cold again here. But the weather has started to get a little bit better around these parts. It's Valentine's Day is coming up for everybody with their significant others. We're on NBA All-Star break. My St. Louis Billikens play tonight. There's a big weekend of college basketball that's going to be amazing. Trinidad Chambliss is going back to Ole Miss, at least for now. NBA All-Star weekend for anybody that actually still gives a shit about that. Can't believe look what they've done. Look what they did to my boy. I used to love the NBA All-Star weekend, but like we're all excited. It can be enough to just like, I'm gonna draft some teams. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about. Let's hang out. Let's figure it out together. You know what I mean? Let's draft some teams. I'm drafting teams when I'm not streaming on YouTube. You're drafting teams when you're not watching people stream on YouTube. We can all do it together and have a little bit of fun and talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about while trying to win $500,000, right? Between the NFL top prize is $250 and baseball top prize is $200,000, which is kind of crazy. I know it's a little bit top heavy. We're up to 9 of 12 in the $10 training camp on DraftKings for anybody that has just joined and might want to pop in to the NFL draft. I've been known to hand out a lot of EV on drafts when I'm streaming. And today I'm streaming both MLB drafts and NFL drafts at the same time. So I believe that's buy one, get one expected value points if you hop in these drafts. Does DK typically take longer to fill? Not. I found it to be fine. I was 1 of 12. I was the first person that got into the room, and so on a Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, it's probably not the most voluminous time for drafters to be out there. So, but I've had no problems with DK filling drafts for me personally. Guy in the 2-hole takes Judge. Oh, wow. Marte and Trey Turner. That's nice. That's helpful. You can tell the outfielders are like the wide receivers of of baseball. You can tell that the 2 Spike Week bros have 3 outfield start there. It's very fitting. By the way, was that a real picture of Roman Anthony that I saw? That he looks like freaking Tyler O'Neill. Damn it, heck. Sure, little Cub stack. Why not? And we're full in. Well, it was full in football. There we go. JSU sack. Look at this. I think I've seen the short game TV. Folks trying to. They know people are hounding for the expected value. Shout out MCAP, helping us fill a room. Dennis, I believe, is your first name. Happy to be a new Spike Week member of the community. Opinions are valuable. Nowhere else do you get best ball rankings. Orel Rumble Pool, solid player takes. It's okay to be wrong. I'm with you. Okay, we're just ripping outfield. Sorry, ripping outfield and Bryce, of course. Have not drafted Bryce yet. In the 110. CLN is here in the 112 or 11. Either way. I don't know if I don't even know how many drafts I'm through in this. 4. It looks like 4. 4 in the training. Got to pick up my pace here. 15 big boards for DraftKings does not feel like the appropriate spread we got going on here. So no, nobody in my portfolio yet that's around the 110. I've been meaning to get some more Genty, so maybe we'll pull up Genty for my Raiders love. if the Raiders don't spend on their offensive line, you get Kubiak, you get Mendoza, you have Genti, you have Bowers. Do what needs to happen with the Raiders is they need to do what Ben Johnson did when taking over the Bears. The defense is not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right away. We can build up the defense over time. But everything needs to be built around the success of Fernando Mendoza and giving Clint Kubiak all the resources to make Fernando Mendoza successful. And you already have two strong. I think Michael Mayer can play. I think he's a really awesome second tight end to have on an NFL roster. So like you're not far from having the skill pieces on offense. There's not a lot of awesome receiver options. I'd probably dig more into the, try to find some value amongst the Romeo Dobbses, right? Obviously we talked a little bit about this the other day of the Shaheed connection to Clint Kubiak. Of course, Clint Kubiak has coached Shaheed now for 2 years and on two different teams. And that seems like a pretty good fit. For Kubiak's offense, he's just a good football player, right? But for the Raiders, also feels like a good fit. But like a Dobbs on one side, Shaheed on the other side, Brock Bowers, figure out whether it's some bargain bin option, Trey Tucker, a rookie, whatever, to kind of round things out. Play a bunch of 12 personnel with Mayer and Brock Bowers is how I would do it. Clint Kubiak has forgotten more about football this morning than I'll ever know. So who am I to say? But I think that from a fantasy perspective, that would be the skill player grouping that I think would be the most fun. But the most resources need to go in the offensive line because that offensive line was abysmal. I felt bad for Gino. Gino got okay. Shout out DraftKings for being a little delayed there. Let's do Genti. But if they take they're kind of on the Bears' path. Obviously, Mendoza's rookie Ben Johnson took over after Caleb Johnson had already been in the league. But if we take that same path, I think it would be the Raiders could be one of the more fun teams. Now they're priced like it, right? We're paying for it. Let's do. Let's do Hampton. I don't do a ton of Amarian Hampton. The price makes me a little bit squeamish, but I'm forcing all of the Chargers into my portfolio. Like I am a Charger stan this year. That is going to be one of my. But how do I go about that concept from a best ball perspective is a little bit tricky. Cubs stack for the win, I guess. How do I go about my general macro? It's kind of an interesting part of best ball is you have a take, right? The Chargers are a smash. The Chargers are going to be awesome, specifically on offense. I don't know if you guys saw the Mike McDaniel and Jim Harbaugh at the Lakers game last night. It's hard to tell if Harbaugh specifically is trying to dress like Mike McDaniel. Like, somebody posted that I saw. I apologize. I won't be able to give them credit because I don't remember who did it. But Kevin Tompkins, I believe, posted. You remember the episode from The Office where Ryan is, got hired by corporate or whatever. He's the boss now, and he has the goatee, and Michael is obsessed with Ryan and thinks Ryan's just like the coolest guy ever. So he grows a goatee too, but he looks like a total old loser with his goatee. And I just cannot shake that comparison between Harbaugh and Mike McDaniel. McDaniel is the young, cool, hip guy that dresses cool with glasses and Jordans and all that kind of stuff. And Harbaugh is going to try to mimic that, but do it with the old man Nikes and old man glasses and old man khakis and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm I'm genuinely like, I don't think there's a team I'm more excited for overall in the NFL heading into 2026 than the Chargers. Just like everything. Say whatever you want about Harbaugh. He's clearly a good head football coach. Mike McDaniel, I think, with all of his potential flaws or whatever, is a good offensive coordinator. Justin Herbert is a good quarterback. The offensive line is going to go from terrible to elite. The defense is already good. The skill players are already good, and they have some of the most draft cap space in the entire NFL to do what they want. Their best players are all young. It's kind of the perfect, right? Mahomes is hurt. The Bills are sort of flailing. The Ravens are in a time of transition. The Patriots, while very good, are certainly not some juggernaut. We just saw that, right? The Broncos are not some juggernaut. That the path is so clear for the Chargers to be awesome and be efficient on offense and score a bunch of points. But what does that mean when they're sort of, they're not, I don't think they're priced, to their ceiling or whatever. I don't even really know what that means. But I like Kamani Vidal and Trey Harris. Of course, like I like the cheaper guys better. But if Ladd is still awesome, like he was as a rookie, and now he's unlocked a little bit under McDaniel, if QJ continues to improve, even if he's just sort of the player that he was last year, I think he's fine at his price. But it's difficult to be like, man, even with my Chargers hype, I feel squeamish about like second round Hampton, about the prices on the receivers and everything. The only price, Harris and Vidal, like I said, Justin Herbert is a great price, but nothing like jumps off the page to you. So how do you balance the fact that you have this borderline obsession with this team in terms of their upside projection, whatever? Oh, wow. Little Josh Allen fall? Sure. We'll do Josh Allen. But how do you balance your like macro NFL takes for a season with individual player takes and individual, like building it into your portfolio is much more difficult than it may seem. Sometimes it's really straightforward, right? Like if you loved Seattle last year, I was like, well, the price is not very, I know who to draft. JSN, Ken Walker, Sharps, easy peasy, Torrey Horton. But sometimes you love the team, but you don't know who to draft, how much to draft of them. That's where I'm currently at on the Chargers. Baseball back on the clock. God damn. You guys are just shoving this Cub stack down my throat, which is not my favorite thing as a Cardinals fan, even though I think the Cub stack is pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, shit. All right. We made it 23 minutes with our first auto pick of Travis Etienne. He said robust running back is good this year. Start talking about the Chargers and you end up auto picking Travis Etienne. The DraftKings thing is really triggering though. It's on your tabs on your computer, right? It says how many picks away you are. It's not. It doesn't work great. That's what I'm looking at on my monitor where I put the drafts on. That's what I'm looking at, and it's not cooperating. It's not telling me the truth. Thoughts on Genty? Can you become a top 3 running back with QB? Could be definitely 100%. That's why, despite like a down season, an underwhelming season for Genty, and let's see, 5 off. We are going full blown 0 pitcher here. 0 pitchers through 9 rounds. That's fun. But I'm very bullish on Ashton Genty. I'm bullish on apparently the NFC West and not the Chiefs and Broncos. But the Chargers and Raiders are definitely, Raiders are not to the Chargers level of my excitement, but they could get there probably. I mean, I don't think Fernando Mendoza has Justin Herbert's upside in his range of outcomes. So that's part of it. But I think Kubiak versus McDaniel, I think you probably give Kubiak a little bit of the nod there between the two of them. But in terms of producing fantasy points, I don't think there's much of a difference. There's just everything's already there. Like the Chargers could add literally nothing to their offense, and they're going to be awesome on offense. And there's not that many teams that can say that. And then also they have like $40 million of cap space. So the Raiders are just a little bit behind. They need to, specifically the offensive line. If the Raiders don't address the offensive line like a major way, this could go from I'm really excited for the Raiders to, oh no, this might be a disaster for the Raiders. So everything centers around what they do with the offensive line. Of course, the receivers on the outside is important as well. But as it stands right now, we're like sort of trusting Kubiak and the Raiders, which trusting the Raiders hasn't been a winning exercise for a long time. But we're putting a lot of faith in Kubiak, and I do believe that's deserved. And if he does the Ben Johnson thing and upgrades this offensive line and upgrades the overall offense and brings a really smart play caller, which of course we know he is. What is it? The ceiling is the roof. Isn't that what MJ said? The ceiling is the roof. Whatever that means. Let's see. Rather be early than late. That is for sure. FK Cooler is also having the my phone. I get the note. I'm 2 picks away when I'm on the clock. Yep, it's very triggering. I'll be honest. All of these sites need to step their games up when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's as someone who does multi-table a good bit and who does a bunch of slows, it's not been a particularly fun experience so far in 2026, drafting these teams with the notifications and everything. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. See, I need to update my ranks because I have Santander out of the rankings now, and Gavin. Okay. See, on the clock, 10 seconds left. Christian Watson works. But yeah, these notifications are killing me. I think the UIs have gotten closer. I think DraftKings has made some nice upgrades, whereas Underdog just like sort of nailed it out of the gate, right? 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. Now, Underdog just did a really good job with their UI immediately. And so they haven't had to change a whole lot, though I think just over time with a little bit more, focus on things like Pick'em and such, that it's fallen off just a smidge. I'm going to do DK Metcalf, actually, something I don't generally do. I cannot afford to auto here. So I'm going to take Glass now. I don't love that, but I don't take him very much. And I am clearly behind at pitcher. Let's see. Who has really outproduced in a Kubiak offense besides a wide receiver? The entire Seahawks backfield last year? So JSN, Olave just happened to be playing with absolute dog shit quarterbacks with the Saints, but Shaheed produced with the Saints. Juwan Johnson produced with the Saints. Alvin Kamara was producing with the Saints under Kubiak, and then Derek Carr got hurt. So like a lot of people have. Kubiak's a really good coach, and then this past year, it's a split backfield. So if Genty is just splitting with some other back, he's not going to produce like a first rounder. You're betting that he takes the lion's share of the stuff. But if Ken Walker plus Zach Charbonnet was an absolute monster, it's just Zach Charbonnet stole a bunch of stuff from Ken Walker. So yeah, I think that's it. This is very good feedback, which is part of why we built the Draft Hacker. So you can see this stuff, right? It's loading here, of course. But we add some views so that you can see your team, right? So I can see my team based on teams. You can see your team based on, obviously we don't have the playoffs in here, but you can change, to ownership combo and stacks, and you can put some notes in here if you want to put notes in here. There's a lot of different stuff that you can see. I prefer the team view because I don't care that much about the positions, and you can see the positions on here fairly easy. But I want to see see I have only 7 different players on 7 different teams, or 6 different players on 6 different teams. But I agree with you. There's some missing things. Yeah, Juwan's been good. It's just not super sexy. I'm not discounting anything. What do you mean? The Saints infrastructure? The Saints have some of the worst infrastructure. You're right. I agree. The Raiders need a lot of work. I said if they don't improve, if they don't make these adjustments, it will be a disaster. So they better. Otherwise, my tune on the Raiders will legitimately go from I'm really excited for this to this is an absolute train wreck if they don't do that work, like you said, which is give Kubiak the reins and let him build this roster and upgrade all of these weaknesses that they have. And if they don't do that, then they'll go from this is one of the more exciting teams in February to in April and May. Are we sure we want to do this? Are we sure Kubiak can overcome this? That what happens in these next 2 months is absolutely massive. 2.5 months, whatever, is absolutely massive for the Raiders. Bubba. Yeah, let's do Bubba. CLN has an unhealthy amount of Sutton this year. I have not drafted Sutton yet. Full transparency. Also haven't drafted Alec Pierce yet. Yeah, this space I did not think through. I'm gonna have to download the rankings and upload them for baseball because this is a little bit of a disaster. Let's do the QJ thing. I have Josh Allen, so I don't think Herbert or something is warranted, but we can still talk about this, right? Building out secondary stacks. Oh, these freaking injured guys. Let's do Lodolo. I've done Flaherty a few different times. Build in a little bit more upside here. Gavin, Glasnow, Bubba, and Lodolo to go with my 5 outfielders, 4 infielders. Feeling a little bit better about that now. There was a question about Kid Kick. Do we want 7? Do we go 7 pitchers early and 6 as we get closer to season? I am new to this. I don't think that's unreasonable. I will say I don't think I adjust the roster spot allocation based upon timing of the season too much. Football with like quarterbacks and tight ends and stuff but with football, it's like the level of uncertainty is even much more greater than baseball. The only real uncertainty that we have right now, generally speaking, we're really, really confident who's going to be like make teams. We have a really high level of confidence in terms of like who's going to be in the lineup, like you're in the lineup or you're platooning or you're starting in the minors or whatever. We have a pretty high level of confidence in those things. Whereas like NFL, it's like, is your 12th round, like you drafted some guy in the 12th round and he's a free agent. That guy could be a screaming value, or that guy could be the worst pick on the board, right? In February, because we haven't even got to free agency yet. The MLB's at a much. We're in July of the MLB drafting. If we're comparing MLB to NFL, so I'm not making major adjustments on how many I draft. It is almost entirely about what my team looks like, right? How truly weak. Not only how weak am I at pitcher. Did I really punt it off? I'm not drafting more than 7 pitchers, so I'll say that much. I'm not drafting more than 7 pitchers, and 7 is reserved for, maybe I was in a slow and I took Swellenbach or whatever. Or I drafted a hurt guy. I drafted Snell, or I drafted, I'm sure I'm missing even maybe some just generally riskier guys health-wise or whatever. Or I'm just like, I really punted it off and I'm weak at the position. But I also want to make sure that I'm strong, because if you also took if you took these hamate bone guys, the fucking hamate epidemic that's going around, even it wasn't as Caleb Wilson from North Carolina broke his hand the other day in their basketball game. It's just like this hand thing. It's the new Achilles, apparently. But it's sort of this weird balancing act that I would love to give an answer of. I want to draft more pitchers early and less pitchers later, but really it is, I'm drafting 6 or 7 pitchers on every team essentially. And the 7 is reserved for the rest of my 13 infield / outfielders are solid. And I'm a little bit weak at pitcher. I could use a little bit of this Flaherty stability here, I think. A pitcher. So we're up to 5 pitchers. NFL. Damn. Josh Allen, Genty, Hampton, Watson, Metcalf, Pierce, Etienne, QJ. Okay. Can keep building out the little fun Chargers thing. We can close up shop on. Let's take Algier and close up shop at running back. So Genty, Hampton, Etienne, Algier. God, Etienne makes me feel so uncomfortable. I can't believe I autoed him. I'll take Kowser here. That should be 6 outfielders. Yeah. Okay. See, like I might do 7 on this team. All right, let's do the Chargers. Gadsden. Genty, Hampton, Allen, Etienne, Watson, Metcalf, Pierce, QJ, Algier, Gadsden. How do you know so much about all these sports? Following the NFL feels like a part-time job by itself. I don't have a great explanation. I wouldn't consider myself an expert in frankly anything, but I just been like legitimately obsessed with sports and like not just like, oh, I watch Sports Center or whatever, but like the numbers behind the stuff and all that. Since I was a little, it's hard to explain, I guess. I played it like most people did, played like every sport under the sun. Growing up, baseball on into AAU basketball, on into Little League football, on into whatever. And I've just always followed them really closely. And so I actually wouldn't say, it's interesting because everybody in our little world seems to love football is just their love, right? They don't really care that much about the other sports. Whereas football ended up being what I played college football and coached. And I do very much enjoy the game of football, but like basketball was really my love. And like growing up, I went to baseball games and hockey games, and I fell in love with college basketball for whatever reason. I don't even really know why that was either. I enjoy the college elements of sports just a little bit more. Like, I don't really know why, and that's certainly changing now, right? With with NIL and transfer portal and everything. But I just am literally following all of the sports like at all times. It's hard to explain. The day-to-day grind is very strange, but like I'm watching like endlessly. like I watch all the football games every Sunday. I watch college football all day every Saturday, and watch Thursday night, but just like everybody else does. Last night I'm watching a bunch of college basketball games and the NBA. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I just watch a lot and read a lot and look at lots of data and listen to lots of podcasts. And I don't actually listen to as much like NFL and read and stuff as much NFL content as I do some of the other sports. So that's a very non-answer, but I think it's like obsession, I guess. Like I'm obsessed. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I enjoy it. I enjoy day-to-day grind of keeping up with all the different stuff. What did I say? That was my 6th outfielder? Okay. All right, I'm just gonna reach for my guy Jacob Lopez here because I didn't know what else to do, and I'm trying to get my exposure up a little bit on Lopez. One quarterback. Okay, so we're done it. I forgot I need to let's get Malik Willis here to make sure I get my QB2. Otherwise, I will get locked out really fast. This is Underdog or DraftKings. This is DraftKings. Sorry, I know my head is covering the my head is covering the DraftKings logo. See if there's anybody I haven't been drafting here too much before I go get. Let's do Herrera. 6-5. I do think I'll probably go to 7 pitchers here. Stick to the 6 outfielders since I started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the first 6 rounds. Yeah. Okay. Couple pitchers and an infielder feels nice. Yeah. All right. This team's working out. Let's see what we got going on the NFL side. Maybe not quite as pretty. God damn it. Auto number 2. Do the Seahawks take a step back now that Kubiak has left? It's certainly possible. The defense is still going to be the defense. But I think it's a completely fair question. The one that we should all probably be asking, right, is how much of what they just did does Clint Kubiak get the credit for? The offensive line was fine. JSN's awesome. Is JSN going to be the same without Clint Kubiak? I mean, he's probably still just a superstar, right? Is Sam Darnold going to be the same without Clint Kubiak? I don't know. I don't know how anyone can confidently say what to expect from the Seahawks with Kubiak gone. Am I crazy to have Omar Cooper over Surratt? No, it's not crazy. I think Surratt's better, but in weird ways, I guess. I think Surratt has the sort of profile, if you will, of an NFL wide, just like a full-time NFL wide receiver that's probably a little bit more fantasy friendly, but I'm not sure that makes him better. It's a little hard to explain. Cooper is like good with the ball in his hands and certainly can make plays down the field and all that. I believe I saw something on Reddit, maybe it was yesterday, about how he's one of like only this very small amount of players over the last X amount of years or whatever, to combine for like the amount of missed, forced, evaded tackles plus like a dot or something. So he's not only catching the football down the field, but he's also, when he catches something shallow, he's breaking a lot of tackles, which is great. That's ideal, of course. The thing I struggle with the Indiana guys is I think Charlie Becker was their best wide receiver. He's of course not eligible. He was a sophomore this past season at Indiana, and I think Charlie Becker became their best wide receiver. I think Surratt and Cooper were clearly the best guys for part of the season, and maybe it's just like 1A, 1B, 1C is what they all were. That's probably actually the right answer, but that's a little concerning for Surratt and Cooper. It's not necessarily concerning if Becker is really good, which I think he is, but how should we be, judging them as pro prospects? Let's see, what pitchers do I need to get some exposure to here? Let's go back to that. Oh, sure, Grayson. Gosh dang it. I can't believe it. I mean, I guess if you're going to accidentally take Tyreek Hill, this is kind of the right team to do it on, if we're being completely honest. Just my 2 cents. Raiders fan for numerous decades, more than 3. Kubiak will not be building the roster. He will have some input, but not total. I don't think there's almost no head coach that has total control. But what you just need is, and I am not saying that they're going to do this, to be 100% clear. There's Shaheed, speaking of. It is not my expectation that they are actually going to do this, right? But I'll take Shaheed, actually. Basallo, McGonigal, Adley. I mean, I'll take Tovar, I guess. I need to draft more of him. Let's do Likely. Gadsden Likely is a really fun pairing, but what you need for the Raiders is not full control by Clint Kubiak, but you just need people with enough sense. And again, this is the Raiders. Gab knows better than anyone. This might be a fool's errand to go down this path, but I think what you need is just them, like, here's where we need to invest, and here's the kind of things I'm looking for. Here's the skill. Just like, take my feedback. He doesn't need to make every single decision all by himself and all that kind of stuff. But maybe I'm being totally foolish in thinking this way about the Raiders. Is probably almost certainly foolish, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to bring in the hottest head coaching candidate of the last 2 seasons, essentially, him and Ben Johnson, and not listen to how he wants to build the roster. Doesn't mean he's being the GM and the head coach, but they should be working hand in hand. And if they don't, then shame on me for believing that that's about, I'm willing to accept that risk, I guess, at this point in time in drafts, because I can also change course in April and May when they didn't listen. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. But it's a good point. For the onesie positions on DK, would you be done after Lawrence, Nix, Darnold for QB? Yeah, I would. I will say at the tight end position, it's a little bit of dealer's choice amongst tight end, running back, wide receiver. I'm trying to continue. I tried to get better at this last year. Not so sure I did, but getting better at being less concerned specifically about the position. Of course, you definitely want to care about the position, right? Positional allocation matters. But at the end of the day, like in the 20th round, if there's a guy that you think is like truly head and shoulders above, but you don't like really need the third tight end, I think it's totally fine. If the tight end is the best pick, the tight end is the best pick. But the same can be said, if the wide receiver is the best pick, the wide receiver is the best pick. One more infielder here. Oh, Paredes. Dude, the Paredes price is absolutely nuts. But I don't think I've taken Andrew Vaughn yet, and I really need to get Andrew Vaughn into the portfolio. So let's do that. And then let's go over to Underdog. Back on the clock over here. Let's skip. Just keep hammering my boys here. Too funny. Does the 30-second clock on DK seem terribly long to anyone else after getting used to the 20-second on Underdog? It's so funny that you say that, because that is Rick. Shout out to Rick from the Discord in the chat the other day was making that complaint about like I won't do the rant again, but like the first world problems of us. Oh, it's just so painful to have to wait 30 seconds for picks in my fantasy football draft on February 13th. Nobody has it worse. I know that's not what you're saying, but it's like, oh, this is so miserable. I have to wait 30 seconds for this guy to pick it. Unbelievable, dude. Just unbelievable. Same team. Well, currently, same team. How do you draft NFL teams on DraftKings? I don't see it on my phone. If you have, I assume you have the DraftKings fantasy app and not the sports book, and you go to the lobby, and then you go to NFL, and then it says Best Ball, and then you go to where it says Early Bird Tournament, and you draft there. CLN can't wait for college football best ball. Dude, college football best ball is so much fun. It is so much fun. The player pool is so freaking enormous because it's all the Power 5 teams, and Underdog can't figure out how to get Oregon State and Washington State out of there. I don't know why they're not Power 5. They're not Power 5 teams, and Oregon State is truly horrible. Like truly horrible. Before they were originally in the Pac-12, and obviously now they're not in the Pac-12, and Underdog, I guess, can't figure out that they're not in the Power 5 and don't know how to just say, anyway, it's very funny that all that money and we can't figure out how to get Oregon State out of the player pool for college football. But the player pool is so big, the strategies are so crazy. There's people out there that are like, you got to draft 6 quarterback. Because it's super flex, so I get part of that. But people draft 6 out of their 20 picks as quarterbacks, and like, it's crazy. It's the wild fucking West. It's college football. I learned to change the diaper. in 20 seconds. Let's do, what did we say? Well, we have to be shooting for 200,000, so we have to do the regular big board here, and 11 big boards. So this will be number 12. So I need 9 of you sickos to fill a big board, and that'll be our closing draft. The draft 2 at a time. Unsurprisingly, Erik screwed it up. Which fantasy sport do you feel you have the biggest edge in? Definitely the smaller stuff, the college stuff. It's definitely not NFL, and I don't think it's baseball. Though I think we can take some lessons. The beauty of the other sports is they're covered less. MLB, NBA, NHL, golf, college sports. And so on one hand, you're obviously going to get mostly people who know the sport. They're doing it because why the hell else are you drafting, NBA best ball teams? You don't care about the NBA. But there are things that you can extrapolate from having played all of these sports, right? The strategy elements. It's not just like being a best ball expert doesn't make you an expert in all the sports, but being a expert in that sport doesn't make you an expert in drafting best ball teams in that sport. Quite frankly, a lot of the times, the people who may have the most expertise in a sport may not be the best fantasy players if they're not experienced at, like, right, the positional allocations, like figuring out positional allocation, figuring out the little nuances of the schedule, of the payout structure, of the tournament details, like all that kind of stuff. Because ultimately the game is not just a player take game. Where am I at here? 8 wide receiver. I'm gonna keep taking this dude until he moves up. Pat Freiermuth is my current obsession of a late round tight end. I'm going to talk more about it next week. We don't got to get into it too much, but yeah, I'm much more of a 4 guy, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think I would definitely say, like, so like the reason why I am here today is specifically because I understood, after getting my teeth kicked in for years in DFS, I eventually started to figure out, like, I can't go to battle with these guys who are much smarter than I, have much more resources, have just a better overall understanding of the math and everything than I do. You know who I want to do? You just please excuse me. You can tell I'm starting to get deeper into my rookie stuff, where I'm trying to get exposure to some of these rookies that I don't have yet. Ted Hurst, look him up, Georgia State. But I figured out eventually, after losing a bunch of money, donating every Sunday or whatever, playing the FanDuel Million, I had to, like, carve out a space where because I just can't beat back then it was Sahil and those guys. And so I was like, let's, so I pivoted to, like, smaller field tournaments stuff. Like, I can't beat them at projections. I can't beat them at, I could beat them at, I think, some, like, nuts and bolts of football, X's and O's and all that. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. Okay, we didn't auto a pick in the big board. But if I know if I can more accurately figure out what all my opponents are going to be doing, and there's fewer teams, I may have to pony up a few more extra dollars, but I was already spending that just on more teams on a Sunday. So I moved it to, like, a single entry style, get to as small a field as possible, because I can figure out more clearly what my opponents are. It at maybe not as much now, maybe it is just as much now, but back then it was a more predictable environment in terms of what my opponents were going to do. let's do. You know what? I don't really like James Cook, but I'm on my running back. I'm in my running back phase here. So let's. I just wanted to see if they'll give me Cook and Genty. If not, we'll try something else. Nope. So I had a lot of success for a while in like the smaller field stuff and worked my way up and had some good solid scores. Oh, let's scroll it down a little bit. Let's do Cook and Jeremiah Love. Just get a more unique combination there at the turn. And that worked for quite a while. And then, the game's gotten tougher over the years. And so I've still been able to grind out some stuff, but I specifically focus a little bit more like going back to the question of like, why do you follow all these different sports? Well, it's partly because that's what, betting the NFL is very difficult. So I do a lot of sports betting on a daily basis and grinding like these sort of niche player props and grinding these, I bet Merrimack basketball last night as an example. Finding the spaces where you can still extract some edge, I think has been a focus of mine. So sometimes that lends itself to more of the niche sports or the niche environments, right? The stuff that's just far less covered. I am going to do 5 running backs on this team. And so, yeah, the March Madness last year, the March Madness best ball, college football best ball. I do think NBA, generally speaking, I would say NFL is probably my lowest edge, but I think it's most people's lowest edge. I think there's the most money to be won in the NFL, but I think that there's a ton of brilliant NFL people out there. And just the sheer nature of the game is complete and utter chaos. Let's do Skylar Bell to close it out. There's a couple of rookie names for fun since I don't think I drafted a rookie, did I? No, I almost just said Genty Hampton, second-year players. But Christian Watson, DK Metcalf, Alec Pierce, QJ, Rashid Shaheed, Ryan Flanoy, Devon Bailey. Yeah, I think we need a little bit of rookie juice back there. All right, I like it. Back to the big board. See, like this is showing me, you guys can't see it, but it says 20 picks away, and I'm 1 pick away. Passing on Jefferson in the second. I'm trying to keep my exposures at a more reasonable level and hit some of these targets a little bit better. Right? So, my target rate's 14. My actual is 15. See, I need to get this I need to move this LAD number up. It'll update if you don't have the board open. See, that's stupid. That's dumb. That's very, very dumb. Say, okay, this guy at the turn is not my friend. It does not appear. I have what is Optimizer says T because I haven't drafted him yet. T Garrett Wilson Burden. Okay, Optimizer, I'm listening. Whatever you say. But T in the 4th feels fine. James Cook, Jeremiah Love, Lab McConkey, T Higgins. That works. But yeah, you'll see me when they open up this soon. We're about 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday for March Madness, and college basketball is like my favorite hobby. There's 365 Division I teams, and so there's always games on. But then also, like I said, I'm grinding it from a like a sports betting and stuff perspective. And so there's always things that you can find. Scouring for injury. It's gotten so much better over the course of our lives, but scouring for injury news or just getting out ahead of things can be really advantageous in markets like that. College football is similar. Whereas it's not so much, NBA during this silly season though, right? Teams are already, Jazz and Pacers already getting fined for tanking stuff. There's edges to be had in these prop markets, I think, in my opinion, in the NBA, but it's still few and far between relative to so many of these other sort of gambling ventures. But again, that like if there's in terms of efficiency, it's hard to find those spots in something like the NFL, and I think that also is true in like best ball sports, fantasy sports, where like look, NFL is just it's so far and away the most popular game. Everyone is so much more informed, then the market becomes so much more efficient. That's just not the case for other sports. And so I tend to focus a little bit more my own personal play and my own personal like free time on the other sports, even though NFL consumes the majority of, like the career. I mean, the optimizer doesn't anticipate anything you don't tell it to do. The optimizer is not a magic black box that the draft optimizer is only what you tell it. We don't make the decisions for you. If you want to account for last place teams having the easier schedule, then account for it. That's the beauty. That's what that's the optimizer. That's what it's optimizing for what you tell it to do. How much you want to draft of the player, what players you want to draft that player with, who you want to stack with them, whatever rules you want to put into place, whatever target exposures you want to put in, what players you like, that's up to you. We're giving you the tools to say, I said I want this much of this player, I want this much of this player combined with this player, right? All that shit. When you say those things, it's a lot more difficult to actually build them into your teams than it seems. Jordan Tyson. And so, yeah, if anyone ever has any questions about the optimizer, of course, you can ask me. You can also pop into the Discord, link in the description, hit the thumbs up, all that fun stuff, and ask away. It's a really powerful tool, but we don't try to build the tools that give you the answers. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with building tools that give you the answers. I just don't think that we have all of them. I don't believe that I have all of the answers. And so Rome, Drake May, BTJ. Let's do BTJ. This is the hope, I think. This is the hope. This is my third year playing NFL Best Ball. Second, taking it more seriously, investing more money. I watch and read lots of content. I know a ton about the NFL, but I feel like I'm still wrong. Yeah, I don't think there was a good. I think it was Chris Towers was just yesterday. He's more in the baseball world, and he's talking about fantasy baseball. And I forget the player he was talking about, so I apologize. I'm going to screw it up. But he basically said, everything I've read is saying, this player, it won't work. It won't translate or whatever. I forget, it was an international player. And and the reasoning was not flawed, but it was the confidence level was flawed. It was, how can anyone say, when we've never seen this guy play in Major League Baseball before, with such confidence that it's just, there's no way that this works. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing that like the tools can like. I think the number one biggest flaw that I've had for many many years, even when I've become more cognizant of it, is the degree of overconfidence that I have in takes. And so you can read as much as you want, you can study as much as you want. Like this is a injuries are an easy cop out to this, but like I had 20% Malik Neighbors last year. Was that wrong? How can anyone say that was wrong? Was it right? I mean, it didn't work out right. Should you just take an 8% of everybody? Should you not? Who's this? Should I have moved all that to Brian Thomas, right? Or Drake London or whatever? Like it's such a funny game. And even when you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Even when you're wrong, sometimes you end up right. Like fading Derrick Henry, was that wrong? He was a pretty shit ass pick for like 95% of the season. He had like 2 really big games. That's important. Is that the reason you should have drafted him? Or are all the it's such a weird, nuanced game that I want to take stands both in favor of players and in fading players, because I just don't think you can win without moving chips around. If you just take 8% of everybody, you're just going to diversify yourself to death, right? People only view risk in terms of being overweight players. People don't, or like full fading players. People don't generally view the risk that exists in diversification in and of itself. Nice. Herbert comes back here. There is diversification risk in that you only get you could draft thousands upon thousands of teams, and you still only have so many combinations of players, so many stacks. You only have the pods that you get granted into, right? You're in your original 12-person pod, then on into each playoff round pod. Maybe you drafted your best team in the mini Schnauzer 7 and not in Best Ball Mania. There's so much of all that you can just as easily diversify yourself to death as you can. Give me. I think Tootin is going to be look at that. I know what the optimizer is going to tell me even before it tells me that it's going to tell me facial Tootin. I'm getting the hang of this thing. But on the flip side, you also don't want to just like take a bunch of stands, not think about that humility aspect, and like, are you sure you want to be 25-0 on this? Would you accomplish the same thing at 18-5? 18-6, good math, Eric. Right? Would you accomplish the same thing at the, would you effectively accomplish the same thing at certain different, and I still struggle with that, and I will still I don't know how anyone couldn't struggle with that. But again, there's this, how much to diversify, how much to take stands, how the answer is somewhere in the middle, but figuring out where the fuck the middle is is the hard part. It's not conceptually. Conceptually, we understand you can't really win this game drafting 8% of everybody. It's just not possible. But you also don't probably need to take on the risk of like taking fucking 75% of all the players that you like, right? You don't need to live that way. Where in the middle is the good stuff? If anybody figures that one out, let me know. And then I'll shut Spike Week down and just draft best ball teams with every, I'll go take out a second mortgage and all that kind of stuff. We'll sell all the goodies, and I'll sell my sneaker collection because I'll be able to afford a new one by drafting best ball teams. But nobody knows that. So again, back to like the tools thing. What we're always trying to do is like, I'm a complete open book. You want to know my take on absolutely anything, any sport, any whatever, I'll give it to you. But we don't have every answer. And anyone that tells you that they have every answer, I think, is even fooling themselves. But you can hear how I'm thinking about things and how I like this player or don't like this player or whatever. Take it, leave it. doesn't matter. But then hopefully you can have the tools to agree with me, agree with Pat or Pete or Gretch or Reeves or Sean or JJ or right whoever you like, Davis. You agree with these guys and then take what they like or take what you like, and now build the teams that you actually want to build and say you want to build. Because I think what you'll find is no matter how strong your takes are and no matter how good of a drafter you are, there's going to be huge like you're going to I constantly keep calling the optimizer the remember tool, because you'll get into a draft like you just remember you said you wanted X% of BTJ, you haven't drafted him yet, because the human part comes in and I'm just like, well, I don't like BTJ better than whoever is available here, right? I don't like BTJ better than Rome or whatever. And it's like, but remember you said you wanted X% of this guy. You said you wanted X% of this guy with that first round pick. And if you don't, how the hell could anyone remember all of that shit when they're on the clock in 20 seconds, right? Everybody's excited for the 20-second clocks. There ain't no way you can remember all that stuff when you're on the clock in 20 seconds. No chance. At a certain point, getting to 25 plus on one player instead of 4% of another is not worth the payoff. That's sometimes true. It's sometimes true. Sometimes that sometimes that player is Kyron Williams or Puka Nacua or Bucky Irving or Sam Laporta or these are generally like the rookie seasons that I'm talking about here. Hold on. Let's see what it see. Speaking, let's see. Dalton Kincaid. There you go. See, haven't reached my target Dalton Kincaid exposure. So remember, draft him, you big dum-dum. Lad T. Tyson BTJ. Okay. Woof. I don't know if I'm going to listen to you because I don't like any of those players at the top of the recommendations. I actually should look at quarterback before this gets wiped out here. By the time it's going to, I really don't like Tyler Shuck, but I have a non-zero on Shuck, I think. Yeah, 2%. So Shuck is up there. I'm going to take him to make sure I don't get wiped out by the impending and currently ongoing quarterback avalanche, right? As we discuss on every single one of these shows. Look at this. Look at all this freaking purple. So much purple. In a few short rounds, all of the quarterbacks are gone. Oops. Boop, boop. It didn't work, but I still don't regret 25% Keaton Mitchell. Yeah, I think stands are important, and I think it should be fluid as well. Like the Kyron year, Kyron's a very unicorn thing, right? There's probably not going to be another Kyron, but maybe Bucky was, maybe whatever. I'm trying to think of some other examples. There's been other late round running backs that have been big hits. Anyway, in May, your target Kyron Williams exposure should have not been anywhere near what it was in August. And in August, we learned about. So we got to August, and I was like, I don't care. I'm drafting Kyron Williams on every team. That's what I said that year. And so whatever, it's like the prices, he should be like a 6th round pick, and he's going in the 2nd to last round. Like, I'm willing to put my chips in, but like that doesn't arise. That doesn't come up all the time. But I don't want to apply blanket exposure rules because every situation is different, right? When Kyron and Puka and the like come about, I think Harold Fannin last year was I don't think I should apply a blanket rule to this. I think this is a little bit of a unicorn case, not to the level of those other guys by any stretch. But I shouldn't say like, I don't need to get 25% Harold Fannin. I got to make sure I get my, X% of who the fuck ever Chig or whatever. Like, that's not really That's not necessarily true. Had to make sure you got your Theo Johnson shares instead of getting this guy who's now going in the 6th round the next season. It's that hard. It's that hard balance, and it's up to right. That's the art. Is like, how do you can set all these fucking rules. Like, I'm never going to go over 20% of a player. I'm not, going to do this, that, and the other. And it's like, yeah, but if you're not applying the human part of it, that's why this game is not solvable. What is Harold Fannin versus Theo Johnson? Like, they're both late round tight ends. They're both actually young. They're both in whatever the hell shit offenses we want to call them, but they're wildly different bets, right? Kyron Williams versus any other late round running. While if you can't assess the difference between those two players, and like even rankings and stuff can't, like, there's nothing static about a spreadsheet that can solve these things for you. I'm sure that there's mathematics that are people with much more intelligent and all of this stuff than I am that can help solve that kind of stuff. But you just can't replace the sort of human element of the game, and certainly you can't replace the insane amount of variance that exists. And so, but that's the fun. That's why we get to talk about it all the damn time. I am going to do the third quarterback, and I am going to do, wait, I don't have a Raider, do I? No. I am going to do Malik Willis. I'm doing a little bit more 3 quarterback, as I mentioned here, especially just being able to take a bunch of late flyers on wide receivers is very fun. Kincaid. What does this say? It's got my do not. Connor, Trey Benson, Ayuk, and Dobbins. Yuck. It says Dobbins, right? Gross. But we'll do it. He says as he clicks. I actually thought Dobbins was pretty good before he got hurt. And this is James Cook, Jeremiah Love, Bashal Tutin, J.K. Dobbins. Talk about a unique running back room. Not sure you see a lot of that combination of players. The Jeremiah Love drafter doesn't love James Cook. The Bashal Tutin drafter doesn't love James Cook. And the Bashal Tutin and Jeremiah Love drafter ain't drafting J.K. Dobbins. That's for sure. Probably not big on Jordan Tyson either, I would imagine. Hashtag unique. You're not talking me into Will Shipley for a 3rd year in a row. I only drafted Will Shipley last year, not 2 years ago. Don't get it twisted. But also Will Shipley's no longer the backup. It was the first quarter of the Eagles game, the first drive, of the first Eagles game was awesome. He gets in there on like the 5th play, catches a pass, gets a couple touches, almost like was not far from scoring. And you're like, we did it, guys. It was right. And then he got hurt, and then they traded for Tank because he got hurt, and it was over. And the Eagles sucked ass on offense. So was it right? Was it wrong? That was like part right, part very wrong. It's like, you'll never convince me that the thesis wasn't right, but a lot of the general thesis wasn't right about Will Shipley, but a lot of the, so 2 things. One, the Eagles sucked. They were brutal on offense. So that part of the thesis, the part of the thesis was that the Eagles' run game is great. And so whoever gets in there is going to be effective in the run game. That could not have been more wrong. So wrong. But the thesis, he was the backup who was going to get some contingent value and some pass catching and stuff. That was right until he got hurt. And then he was hurt, so they traded for Tank. And Tank took that job. What are you going to do? The Bill, a.k.a. JCM, a.k.a. Ja'Cory Croskey Merritt theory last year just didn't pay off. Looking back on it, JCM would have absolutely buried me last year if things broke differently. Yeah, he's an interesting one where I think he was an absolute home run, slam dunk, late round pick. And then when that's the other thing is when the steam gets really out of control and this guy's going in the 80s, when he had a lot of those flaws that he had, I think this team got it was a runaway train, which that does tend to happen. It does tend to happen. Guys get steamy, and then everybody gets FOMO, and then okay, Kamara. Let's do. I'm sorry, I'm taking Tajay again. I know. Who's my tight end? Kincaid? Yeah, okay. Kincaid. I think I'm done. Cook, Love, Tootin, Dobbins, Spears. Okay, that's good at wide receiver. Or at, at running back. My mind's already on to the wide receivers. Okay, get away. Booty, Downs, McMillan. Downs. I haven't drafted Downs. I really don't love him, but we're getting a better price now on a guy who's just a good football player, so I'm down for that. That was not intentional. Do you have any ugly 3 QB builds from QBs round 12 or later? I don't actually. So let's take a look at the quarterbacks from then on. So round 12 is like the cutoff for me. So I would say arguably the biggest sticking point of drafts right now is the quarterback stuff. And talked a lot about it already, so I apologize, for repeating, but this is a great question. I'm specifically, personally, myself, trying to avoid where we're at right now, which is, I assume, JJ McCarthy. Yeah. Once you get into this range, Cam Ward is off the board, and Cam Ward, we could at least make a bull case for, but CJ Stroud, Mendoza, for me, once Malik Willis is off the board, who is a free agent, but I'm extremely confident is going to be an NFL starting quarterback this coming season. I just don't see any way around it. I don't want to be living in these. I don't want to be swimming in these waters of these quarterbacks. It's not because there won't be any hits. It's because, especially right now, there's also going to be hits in late round running backs and wide receivers and all that kind of stuff. But there's going to be so many quarterback misses, and how detrimental the quarterback misses are. Michael Penix and Daniel Jones are both injured right now. Michael Penix tore his ACL for the 3rd time. Is JJ McCarthy, JJ McCarthy is probably just bad. Is Kirk Cousins going to be a starter? Is Jacoby Brissett? Is Kyler? Is Tua? Is Marcus Mariota? Does someone trade for Mac Jones? And then, not only are they even going to be starting NFL football games, are they going to score fantasy points? And the answer to most of those guys is no, because a lot of them started games last year and didn't score fantasy points. And so it's just not something that interests me. I don't feel the need to get into these super duper gross quarterbacks. So I'm just cycling through 2 or 3 of the guys from Malik Willis on up, unless something goes awry in a draft. One guy, I want to make sure he didn't go. I don't know if you guys saw, I'm in the midst of moving Terrence Ferguson way up my rankings. Sean McVay came out giving absolute glowing review. The praise Sean McVay just recently heaped on to Terrence Ferguson was absolutely insane. Borderline psychotic, if we're being completely honest. Hold on, what's my one? DK Tank Delta. I still got work to do on these. I'm taking Trey Harris, bros, to go with Justin Herbert, of course. That's 16 rounds down. James Cook, Jeremiah Love, Lad McConkey, T. Higgins, Jordan Tyson, Brian Thomas, Justin Herbert, Bashal Tootin, Dalton Kincaid, Tyler Shuck, Malik Willis, J.K. Dobbins, Tyjae Spears, Josh Downs, Terrence Ferguson, and Trey Harris. He loves him as much as he loved Jordan Whittington last year. But yeah, Ferguson is, Higbee's old. Colby Parkinson is, they play a lot of tight ends, of course. Colby Parkinson is not a real hurdle. Like, he's fine. But tight end has been a fruitful fantasy position under Sean McVay. It's just been like sort of unsexy names, and then at times, like this past year, spread out amongst multiple guys. I'm not saying Ferguson is going to consolidate all of that by any stretch of the imagination, but they loved him enough to draft him in the second round. Granted, they did that with Tutu Atwell as well. But I think this is just a really good late round tight end click. I don't think there's a lot of risk. He's clearly going to make the team. He's clearly going to play. The offense is clearly going to be good. There's nothing but upside on Terrence Ferguson, in my opinion. Yep, never wrong. Just early. And I didn't really like Ferguson. But I thought he looked good. I do. I mean, Sean, like, who am I to say? Like, I think McVay was right. Like, no shit, he was right. He knows more than you. But I do the novice eye would say I thought Ferguson looked really good. Ferguson getting used on some downfield stuff as a tight end I thought was pretty nice. It's like, the rotational rookie tight end was nice. Coming on strong. It's a little bit of the Trey Harris bull case. It's a little bit of, a lot of young player bull cases are, well, you saw them come on down the stretch. And I don't mean Trey Harris came on. The receiving still wasn't awesome. But step one is earning enough of the coach's trust that you're going to do your job to get on the field and to be trusted to be on the field. It would be excellent if every young player got on the field and fucking dominated right away. Of course, that would be ideal. I mean, this is absurd. Isaiah Likely is still here at pick 203. That's outrageous. I assume all of them. I assume Bailey and my boys, my wide receivers are off the board. So that is stinky. That was part of the plan. But anyway, what can you do? We pivot. Yeah, OTR said, I don't see why both Ferguson and Parkinson can't pay off their prices. I see absolutely no issue with that. Yeah. You said you want 1% Io Manor. Guess who's at the top of the list? Io Manor. So, Io Manor it is. There's my 1%. Never again. Feel like I'm hating the players mid 12 to mid 14. I find myself scrolling a little bit there if I'm not taking a second QB in that area. Mid 12 to 14. Let's just take a look. See, I think I end up doing a lot of the same. Like Benson, Connor, Mason, fine. Strange, fine. Ayuk, whatever. Dobbs, fine. Like these guys like have their places on their teams. But go get someone that you really like. Go for it. We say this even over the summer when ADPs are much more efficient. But again, going back to the, auction dollar analogy that we've used for a couple of years now, it's like once you get past round 12, 13, whatever, at best, these are $2 auction players, right? You have a $200 budget. These are $200 players. $200 budget, $2 players. These are not $200 players, though Trey Harris might be a $200 player. Terrence Ferguson is clearly a $200 player. These are $2 players at best. They're probably just $1 throwaway bids that nobody would outbid you on in an auction draft. So like once you start treating them all as $1 auction players, you stop caring about, like, I can't believe you pulled up that guy from the 16th round to the 13th. Like, who gives a fuck? You don't care in your auction draft if someone goes for $1 and the next guy who's close enough goes for $1. They're all the same. They're all the same. Where we all draw that line of delineation of who is now a $2 player and who is not, that's up to us, but it doesn't really freaking matter. It doesn't. For me, after playing DFS for 12 years, it's pretty much solved at this point. Why I like best ball so much is that I believe you cannot solve best ball. It's just not possible. I don't know if you can hear my golf clap. I totally agree. And I don't think DFS is solved. There's still, but in terms of the way the way you've won at DFS over its life, you don't win that way anymore. The guys who win now are winning in a different way than you've won historically. And quite frankly, I'll never be able to do what Yuta does. I'll never be able to do what Shady does. I'll never be able to do what any of those guys do. They're living in a different world than I'm living in, right? And that's okay. Let's see. Hold on. Ugh. Bateman Fields. I just took Malachi, but I haven't got to my 8% yet, so that's why it's telling me to take Malachi. What other wide receivers are on here? Jeremy Bernard, Bateman. I'll take Bateman. It makes me sick, but trust in what you said in your draft rates. All right, quickly. To close that point, I'm still but I still play DFS and but like I used to profit fairly sizably, like, again, not to the level of these guys, but it was nice. That is not the case anymore in NFL or NBA. I still very much enjoy baseball, actually, from a DFS perspective, and then the college sports. Like I said, nobody out there plays college basketball DFS, and I play college basketball DFS. College football DFS also a little bit more niche, and I very much enjoy those. And I think there's some edges still to be found in it, but again, much less, much like it's not even close. But still some potential edges. But to your point, that we started, it was many years ago now. Can't believe it. This is year 6 of Spike Week. But that was part of my point of Best Ball, was why I wanted to build a Best Ball focused brand and site. Is I still believe the Best Ball, and it has clearly blown up, but will continue to grow as like the go-to best version of fantasy football and fantasy sports, because of all the great perks, right, of not having to do all the stuff that sucks about fantasy sports and only getting to do the fun thing, which is draft. But it's also not like, from a DFS perspective, or like, sports betting markets can get so efficient that there's no real edge and blah blah blah. I just don't think any of that's possible. It's just not. Like, can we get smarter about stuff? Sure, but you're because you're just never going to have samples that make sense. Like, by the time we would have a large enough sample of NFL seasons to draw conclusions from, the sport's evolved, right? Like, we could go back many years, but you can't even compare 2010 football to right now. That's 16 years. That's only 16 seasons, right? DFS, like, you get however many hundreds of slates in one singular NBA season, and you only get 16 slates, and that's and the game has evolved. We're talking about right now we're talking about how much the game has evolved. Like, look at all this tight end usage. Look at the wide receiver 2 and the slot receiver are gone from football. It's like, well, 3 years ago that wasn't the case, and then 5 years before that was different, and 5 years before that was different. So there's just never a sample that will ever get us to answers. Like, we want answers, everybody does, but you're just not going to get there. And so combine that with the complete and utter fucking variance. Like say Malik Neighbors gets hurt, and CMC has a season where he doesn't play basically because of this weird calf thing, and then he comes back and he gets 30 touches a game again. Jonathan Taylor has been the RB1 and he's gotten hurt, and Derrick Henry never gets hurt, and the Lions are the unstoppable offense, and then they suck on offense, and this guy, shrugs. What are you going to do? It's a total chaotic high variance game, but that is the beauty. That is the beauty of it. You're a sicko. I am a sicko. When's the sicko meeting? We meet in it's like Fight Club. Sicko meetings are like Fight Club. The first rule is you don't talk about it. So yeah, exactly. I did CLN says back in my day we stacked kick returners and defenses for the old double dip. I touted the double dip in the Super Bowl this year, by the way. It didn't work obviously with Rashid Shaheed, but the Seahawks defense plus Rashid Shaheed. It was fun to be able to talk about the double dip again on the showdown slate for the Super Bowl. But that's going to do it. Yeah, I think when we start talking about these total embarrassing Fight Club level sicko club admissions, I think it's time to go enjoy your weekend. Be back next week. Rob is starting to feel better. We should be getting back to our early week Best Ball basement shows here fairly soon. Going to try to talk to him about that this weekend. Pat and I will be back very, very soon with Legendary Sickos. And we're back Wednesdays at 4:30 Eastern, Thursdays and Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can come hang out with me and draft some teams just like today, but enjoy your weekend. Go Billikens, and I will catch you guys next week. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.